The Department of Justice releasing its remaining documents from the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche saying the records will be posted throughout the day, including more than 2,000 videos, more than 180,000 images.
Some of the content is so explicit that you need to confirm you're an adult before you can even view it.
Many of Epstein's survivors have been publicly pushing for years to have these documents come out, but it took a law passed with near unanimous support in Congress to finally bring these documents to light.
Victims of Mr. Epstein have endured unimaginable suffering.
And there's nobody that should say anything differently. And I to the extent that there's frustration, I understand where that comes from, just from what we know about Mr. Epstein. I hope that the work that the men and women within this department have done over the past 2 months.
Welcome back. But here's the part no one's talking about, the story slipping through the cracks while everyone else is distracted. While the world chases viral headlines, fires off reactions, and gets consumed by the latest outrage, something far more dangerous is taking shape in the shadows. This isn't rumor. This is real. Because right now, beyond public view, behind secured doors, powerful figures and top-level authorities are quietly examining documents that were never supposed to see the light of day. Files that have been sealed, guarded, and deliberately kept out of reach from everyone else.
NPR investigation reveals the Justice Department withheld portions of the Jeffrey Epstein files that contain allegations involving President Trump, including material tied to claims that Mr. Trump sexually abused a minor, and that some pages mentioning him were removed from the public record. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee called that out today, saying the DOJ's withholding of information could amount to a crime.
Interviews, unsealed records, the unfiltered truth. No blackout lines, no erased identities, no pages torn away. Just stark, unedited documents tying Donald Trump to a web of influence stretching across some of the most powerful names in the world. And now, the silence is cracking. Officials who have seen these files are starting to come forward cautiously, carefully, but what they're suggesting sends a chill through everything we thought we understood. This is where the story begins to unravel. In New York, a federal judge has stepped in, ordering the Justice Department to fix what he called deeply troubling redaction failures in records tied to Jeffrey Epstein.
And Evan Perez is here with us now. And Evan, there's been a lot of speculation about President Trump being named in these files, and we're learning now the FBI actually compiled a list of allegations related to the president back in August. What are you learning?
Right. So this was in 2025 that the FBI compiled a list of all of these sexual assault allegations that involved the president of the United States, that some of them stretch back years, decades, that were associated with this case. And, we don't know what of anything is actually credible here. As a matter of fact, we believe that a lot of these could not be verified. Some of them were second and third hand accounts that people were relating to.
Yeah, those Jeffrey Epstein files. The ones everyone believed would finally expose the full circle of power surrounding one of the most infamous figures of our time. The moment where the truth was supposed to break through. But instead, everything spiraled. This wasn't a simple oversight. It was a collapse. The system didn't just slip, it shattered. Redactions were handled so recklessly that victims' identities, even private images, were exposed to the public. Think about that for a second. The United States Department of Justice had one job: shield the victims while revealing the facts. And somehow, they failed on both fronts. That's when Richard Berman stepped in, and he didn't hold back. He tore into the government's handling of the files, calling out the failures in plain terms. He demanded immediate corrections, forcing them to repair a breach that should have never existed. And here's what makes it even more telling: the moment the court applied pressure and the fallout was finally contained, the hearing was abruptly called off. Only then, when they had no choice left, did they finally do what they were supposed to do from the very beginning.
Judge Richard Berman blasted that request, calling it a diversion. He said no victims testified, only an FBI agent with hearsay knowledge of this case. He added that the information in the transcripts, quote, pales in comparison to the amount of evidence and materials that the government could release at any point. The Justice Department says it will begin giving documents to the House Oversight Committee a little later this week.
But this is where everything shifts fast. On February 9th, two members of Congress, Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna, appeared on CNN and delivered a statement that should have stopped the entire country cold. After being granted access to the fully unredacted Epstein files inside a secured environment, they revealed something deeply unsettling. According to them, at least half a dozen powerful figures are deliberately concealed behind layers of aggressive redactions. Let that truly register. 6 or more high-profile names, relationships, and connections that the public has never been allowed to see. These weren't assumptions. They weren't guessing. They saw the uncensored records. They reviewed the real documents, the versions without blackout lines, without missing sections, without anything hidden. And what they walked away with wasn't just concern, it was certainty. What's been released publicly isn't just incomplete, it's only a sliver of the full story. And here's what makes this even more explosive. Thomas Massie, a Republican from Kentucky. Ro Khanna, a Democrat from California. Two figures from opposite ends of the political spectrum, people who almost never align, both examine the same material and reach the exact same conclusion. Powerful individuals are being shielded, and the public is being deliberately left in the dark.
Congressman Massie and I went to the Department of Justice to read the unredacted Epstein files. We spent about 2 hours there, and we learned that 70 to 80% of the files are still redacted.
This goes beyond party lines. This is one of those rare moments where the usual political divide disappears, and both sides are staring at the same uncomfortable truth. Something is being deliberately concealed. According to what was uncovered, at least 6 wealthy, deeply influential men were hidden behind redactions by the United States Department of Justice, with no clear explanation for why. And when Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna confronted the department directly, pointing out what they had seen, the response was just as unsettling. The DOJ didn't deny it. They admitted it, calling it a mistake.
There were 6 wealthy, powerful men that the DOJ hid for no apparent reason. When Congressman Massie and I pointed this out to the Department of Justice, they acknowledged their mistake.
And now the spotlight swings hard toward Donald Trump because suddenly, his name is echoing through every corner of this unfolding story. The United States Department of Justice has just dropped an enormous release tied to the Epstein files, roughly 3.5 million pages. Yes, millions. Let that register. And buried deep within their official statement is something that feels less like clarification and more like a warning. They admit that some of these documents contain what they call unverified and sensational allegations involving Trump, claims that were reportedly handed over to the Federal Bureau of Investigation just before the 2020 election. Now stop and think about what that really implies. The government is holding a massive vault of records, a sprawling archive filled with explosive accusations. At the same time, they're telling the public that some of those claims aren't true, but they refuse to say which ones. No specifics. No separation between fact and fiction. No clarity at all. Just everything released in one overwhelming flood, stamped with a vague disclaimer. And somehow, that's being presented as transparency.
I think it's really time for the country to get onto something else. Now that nothing came out about me, other than it was a conspiracy against me, literally, by Epstein and other people. But I think it's time now for the country to maybe get onto something.
And now the spotlight swings hard toward Donald Trump because suddenly, his name is echoing through every corner of this unfolding story. The United States Department of Justice has just dropped an enormous release tied to the Epstein files, roughly 3.5 million pages. Yes, millions. Let that register. And buried deep within their official statement is something that feels less like clarification and more like a warning. They admit that some of these documents contain what they call unverified and sensational allegations involving Trump, claims that were reportedly handed over to the Federal Bureau of Investigation just before the 2020 election. Now stop and think about what that really implies. The government is holding a massive vault of records, a sprawling archive filled with explosive accusations. At the same time, they're telling the public that some of those claims aren't true, but they refuse to say which ones. No specifics. No separation between fact and fiction. No clarity at all. Just everything released in one overwhelming flood, stamped with a vague disclaimer. And somehow, that's being presented as transparency.